SV Math Teach back again, this time with systems of inequalities. Now, inequalities are going to solve in some similar ways to equalities, or equations, I mean, but we're mostly going to graph these things, and that's going to be the primary way we're going to solve these. Just so we're clear, a one variable inequality is probably going to look at a very basic level, let's say something like this. And if we were to solve it, we're going to graph this thing on a one-dimensional number line, right? A number line that goes negative to positive. Normally, it's kind of seen as an x-axis. Whatever that solution is, that's how you graph a one-variable inequality. A two-variable inequality might look like 2x plus 4y is greater than or equal to 10. And now, because we have two variables, an x-axis and a y-axis, we need a coordinate plane in order to graph them because we have to be aware of the x and the y-axis and how they work together. A system of inequalities would be, let's imagine we take this guy and we put it here, and then I'm just going to make up something else. Who knows if it even works? Minus 2y. And what I mean by work is there a solution or is this no solution? I don't know. I'm just making this up, but this might be an example of a system of inequalities. With inequalities, I don't tend to use substitution. I don't tend to use elimination. I almost completely use graphing, or sometimes I use a graphing calculator or Desmos. Again, Desmos is one of my favorites. It's free. It's a pretty great app. So let's go ahead and do an example. I won't use Desmos for this one. I'll do it by hand like your teachers might ask. When you see this problem, I added this to the right. If you don't have a graph or a coordinate plane, you should add one, because that's how we're going to do this. So let's start with the first one. Y is less than or equal to 3. So I go to 3 on my y-axis. I'm going to make a horizontal line. I'll let it snap straight. I'm going to keep the line solid because I have that extra little or equal to line there. So the line should not be dashed. And my line is less than 3. So I want things that are less than 3, like 2s and 1s and 0s. So let's go ahead and shade all of that stuff. Now, if you have a highlighter, you can do this, although it can get a little bit messy and make your paper a little bit damp. If you're on an iPad like I am, the highlighter tool is pretty awesome. If you were on paper and pencil, I might regret doing this, but if I were on paper and pencil, I might do like this move where I kind of give myself some slashes. I don't want to find myself coloring in with paper and pencil unless you're careful about it and make it kind of neat. But I guess for this example, so I showed you it, but I still don't really like that. So I'm going to go back to this guy and be a little bit haphazard. Bear with me for a second. You can see it doesn't take long. And if you don't pick up your tip, then it's all one shade. Okay, now let's do the next one. I definitely like to use different colors for this. I'm going to shade a different color and write in a different color as well. Let's use green. What I recall about this particular inequality is that it's an absolute value. That's going to be a V shape of some sort. I see no multiplier, so I see no vertical stretching or compression. There's no negatives, so it doesn't flip over. I do see this piece in here, and as a reminder, that's going to shift my V shape one space opposite of -1. It's going to shift it one space to the right. If you forget any of that, or you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can always bail out and use a table of values. There's nothing wrong with that. Pick some values for X, plug them in for Y, and let's see what you get. But because I've already done the lessons on transformations in a previous video, I'm going to go ahead and graph this directly. This one has a slope of 1 because it's only one movement away from the parent graph. And this has a slope of -1. So that's what this graph looks like. Now, I do need to have my lines dashed. So for that, I'm going to do a partial erasure. Oh, and I realize it's going to erase my direct. It's going to erase my highlighting again. So let's see if we can fix this. Sorry about this. Let's go ahead and get back to the eraser. This is kind of a workaround for the iPad if you're on an iPad. And now let's save that beautiful shading. There we go. No harm, no foul. And what side are we going to shade on? Are we going to shade above or below? So what I observed right here is we're graphing above because it's greater than my absolute value. So I want to shade the stuff that's greater than. So all of this stuff up here is the stuff I want to shade. It's above my V shape. So I'm going to shade above my V shape. And then much like any other graphing video, all I'm really after at the end of the day is, and the iPad again is really great for this, all I'm really after at the end of the day is the overlapped section. If there is no overlapped section, you would say no solution. If everything overlaps, which is abnormal, but if everything were to overlap, you'd say IMS. But in this case, we have a particular region. And that region, if I were to go and switch some colors up, looks like it has a boundary here. It has a dashed boundary here and here. And then the shading on this one, I would probably make kind of extra dark. I'm really going to try to emphasize, if you're a student in a class, you're doing this for a teacher, make sure that you emphasize that part that you really want them to pay attention to. If you want to do an extra special good job of it, get rid of that other stuff and just leave that final region in there, right? As long as you can keep it neat, it'll look nice, and that's all your teacher wants. So good luck.